Hello everybody and welcome to the War Room. This one is for the one on Prime Video 5 main event. The light heavyweight title on the line. Defending champion Reinier De Ridder taking on the interim heavyweight champion Anatoly Malykhin. What a fight this is going to be. So, of course, DeRidder is the tall, rangy jiu-jitsu practitioner, a very skilled individual, top position, bottom position, in the clinch. It doesn't matter. He's a problem if you're touching him. Very, very skilled. On the other side, you've got Anatoly Malykhin, who, of course, is a powerful wrestler. Shorter than DeRidder, but very, very powerful. Makes up for the height difference with his ability to spring himself into range and crack his opponent on the chin, which I will show you in a moment. I also think that this is going to be the best version of Malykhin that we've seen, given the fact that he's coming down to the light heavyweight limit. Now, of course, you know, he is the interim heavyweight champion, but he's always undersized against his opponents. Coming in at 6'4", he's going to have a 4-inch height disadvantage against DeRidder. But of course, his intention, I would imagine, will be to keep this fight on the feet as long as possible. Use his wrestling to stuff the takedowns and force DeRidder to deal with his striking. His right hand, his left hook, both very powerful indeed. And of course, if DeRidder is level changing and shooting into his hips, then we've got sprawls and front headlocks and knees to the head, which is another area I think Malykhin can really cause DeRidder some problems. Quick tail of the tape. So Anatoly Malykhin, as I said, he's 6 foot tall. He has an undefeated record. Both of these fighters undefeated. Malykhin coming in with a record of 11-0, 7 knockouts and 3 submissions, 2 key locks and a choke. On DeRidder's side, 16 wins, no defeats, 3 knockouts on DeRidder's record, but 11 submissions and a nice selection as well. Triangle, inverted triangle, 4 rear naked chokes, 2 arm triangles, 2 arm bars, and a darce, as I said. Very dangerous wherever this fight goes. I'm going to start with a clip of DeRidder because I want us to understand kind of, well, first of all, when he really hit the scene on a lot of people's eyes, taking on Song and submitting him. But this is quite a raw version of his game. He's gotten a lot better since this point, and he's progressed very quickly. But even so, that was a very nice takedown and didn't get the first one. Shoots from a big distance, feints high, level changes, and gets wrapped around whatever he can. I mean, you can just see he's got his left hand to the leg of Song here, but he's able to keep it attached to him, run him back up into the clinch, so he's got this body lock, and then get around behind him where he can block his exit with his right leg. You can see how he's dragging him over his knee here to finish the takedown. You can see that judo styling in his takedowns, and it stitches seamlessly with his jiu-jitsu. As you can see, as he lands here, right arm goes straight over the shoulder, and then he's immediately looking for hooks to control with the rear naked choke. And he's very good at controlling the back and continually attacking over and over again at the neck, but also very good at readjusting his position as well if he needs to reestablish his attack in some way, try and switch things up. You can see here he gets this rear naked choke on Song, and it's across the mouth at this point. But what you'll notice is, in this position, you can see he's got both of his hands on the elbow. He's trying to push this elbow up. He's trying to get that over and away from his neck. And of course, DeRidder wants it to drop and slide below the chin, so it's across his neck and the choke is sunk into position. But at the same time as is trying to push this elbow up, you can see the hands of DeRidder here pulling this elbow joint underneath the chin. So he's currently squeezing this arm across the jawline, across the chin of Song. And what you'll notice with this slow, gradual squeeze, which Eddie Bravo calls a black belt squeeze, it always stuck out in my mind. It's almost like when you're a black belt, you've got the patience to kind of gradually, slowly squeeze a choke on instead of being an excited white belt or blue belt and just squeezing it with everything you've got because you've got a submission. Like this takes patience. This to me is like a walk-off knockout for jiu-jitsu. Like if you watch the way that he squeezes this, it's just a slow, gradual squeeze, and you can see Ongla can't do anything about his chin popping up. Look how that arm just slides underneath his chin, and then straight away, there's no point now. You can see Ongla lets go of the elbow. There's no point being on the elbow at this point because the choke is sunk. And you'll also notice the twisted position that he is. He's being pulled backwards as well, which is also lifting his chin up. A really nice rear naked choke controlling position here. And you know, of course, because DeRidder is so tall and so rangy, if he wraps you up, he must feel like an octopus, a very aggressive jiu-jitsu octopus at that. But, you know, he gets wrapped around you and he's very good at controlling, taking a limb away to re-establish its position and then wrapping you back up. Now, the challenge, of course, against Malykhin is getting the fight to the floor because he's got very strong wrestling. He's very aware of where his strengths are when he goes into fights. You know, I'm not saying that he won't use his wrestling, but I just don't think he'll be using it offensively against DeRidder. It makes more sense to keep him on the feet so he can expose him with that right hand or the left hook, as I say. But given the fact that DeRidder does shoot low and he doesn't always finish his first takedown, there might be an opportunity here for Malykhin to use his wrestling, his grappling offensively early on, especially if DeRidder's reaching for takedowns, which he's not able to get. Because, of course, he's got great takedown defense. He's also very, very strong in a front headlock position. And, you know, of course, if you're lunging in with big shots, you're going to have good takedown defense. But look at that beautiful circle there. It snaps Machado forward, pulls him towards the fence. You can see him pull with his arms before he circles so he can get around to the back. And then you're dealing with a very strong, powerful individual, finding himself in positions where he can drag you back down to the mat and start to strike. Like this is a position that DeRidder doesn't want to be in, of course. And this is where all of his submissions start to become nullified, when he's caught in this crucifix position. And you know, the reason I love DeRidder's style is because he's got so many different options. He can get tangled up and you feel like he's lost his opportunity and then immediately he pulls you back into a submission. The downside is that sometimes he does give positions to try and attack things. Like he'll be on the back and he'll be attacking rear naked chokes and his opponent will shake him off, tripod up and shake him off, and he'll fall off to an arm and maybe not get that arm bar. In those positions, he could find himself tangled up underneath Malykhin, dealing with that heavyweight frame that he's got. Because even though he's not as tall as DeRidder, he's definitely got, you know, a lot of physical mass to him. He's a very powerful individual. And, you know, and you watch him on his Instagram, watch him training alongside the likes of, you know, Peter Yan and, you know, Rafael Fiziev, young, small fighters that are going to really push a pace, and he's keeping up with them, even as a heavyweight. So he's going to be a real handful no matter where he goes in this fight. Even if he is taken down by DeRidder, he's going to be difficult to control. And if he is able to sprawl out and defend some of DeRidder's early takedowns, he can put him in some bad positions. Just like this, where he can trap the arms and work that ground and pound. And this is where that heavyweight frame really comes into play, when the person's just across your shoulders. Doesn't matter how tall you are at that point. So let's have a look at DeRidder at close range, because, of course, if he's shooting and he's level changing in to try and wrestle this fight to the floor, this is where he's really going to run into struggles against Malykhin. If he body locks him and puts him against the fence where he can bring his hips together, this is where he can start using his judo, his trips and his reaps and his long limbs. There's a real value if you're trying to take someone down and you can wrap them up with a body lock. Long legs give you much more. It's much easier to destabilize your opponent. You'll see what I'm saying here. DeRidder's got Abazov up against the fence. You'll see with his left leg, he's going to lace in behind the leg of Abazov to take that base away. Hooks and pulls that foot towards him. You can see now he's got this foot elevated off the canvas. So now Abazov is on one leg. He's also got DeRidder wrapped around his body. He's got this control here. So it's going to be very difficult for Abazov now to continually hop and keep readjusting his base to stay on his feet. And he does try. But what you'll see DeRidder do is he starts to twist this way and he starts to drive down with his body at the same time as keeping control of this leg here. He drags his opponent towards the mat. Drag. And you can see Abazov hopping, and then he lands. And he's straight into a mount position. And something that we've seen in my opinion, certainly in the more recent fights with DeRidder, is although he is a jiu-jitsu practitioner through and through, when the fight hits the floor, his primary focus is to find the submission. He's gotten much better at softening his opponents up, beating them up and wearing them down, using his long frame to wrap them up while he strikes them and does damage. Because it's much easier to submit someone who's already had enough of being beaten up. If he's attacking someone like Malykhin, who's physically very strong and tough, it's going to be difficult to make him submit. He's undefeated, as they both are. He's going to have to do something to encourage him to want to give up, which, if he can get into these top positions where he can start using ground and pound, this is ideal. You know, against a shorter opponent, when you can spread your base and spread your limbs out, it'd be much more difficult for Malykhin to destabilize him. And DeRidder can sit up and he can chop him with elbows and strikes and really start to wear him down. And then when the opportunity comes, when he sets himself up for this arm triangle, he can hop off to the side, and there's the finish. And you could see how fast that tap was from Abazov. You got to bear in mind he was in this exact same position at the end of the previous round. And I've got to talk you through this because this is one of my favorite submissions of recent years, if I'm honest. This goes back to what I was saying about DeRidder, an excellent grappler, but sometimes gives position trying to find finishers. And this fight against Big Dash, of course, Big Dash is a strong, physically well-conditioned individual. This sequence that DeRidder flows through here, starting off with a Kimura on the far side, and then goes through a flow where he exposes the back momentarily, then he slips off for an arm momentarily, and then he finishes with an inverted triangle. It really is a nice flow, but at any point, if Malykhin had been able to shake him off and maintain top position, this is where his jiu-jitsu might get him in trouble. It would be much wiser for him to hold top position and wear Malykhin down before he starts doing all these kind of tumbling octopus jiu-jitsu that he's very good at. Watch what he's doing here. I've slowed it down so we can see it step by step. So you can see he's got the lock on the far side. He's got this control here on the left arm of Big Dash. What you're going to see Big Dash is he's going to move his head outside here. He's going to get his head out of that space, which is what exposes his back for a moment. Now his back's exposed, and you can see DeRidder reaches with this leg. He's trying to get it inside this leg here so he can control that far side hook. But of course, in these moments, Big Dash knows that he's on the ground with a very skilled practitioner, and he's going to be guarded. He's going to not give him any of these things. So as he sits up, you can see Big Dash kind of gets tangled up with his right arm, and then he gets his arm out and keeps turning, denies that hook. So this is where DeRidder now falls off because he's got the Kimura position here. He's still locked onto the arm, but now he's lost control of the rest of the body. So he's going to try and attack this arm. And Big Dash is very good. He gets out of this one. And for a moment, just be aware of that leg position because it's going to be important in a moment. Just for a moment, Big Dash stops. He settles because he feels like he's in a comfortable position. He's not vulnerable to the armbar anymore. He's not vulnerable to a traditional triangle anymore. Because, first of all, this leg is across his midsection. Second of all, this leg's over his shoulder. There's not a great deal for him to worry about in this position traditionally against the majority of fighters. But of course, against DeRidder, there are other things that he's got planned, he's got in his arsenal that he can use, and this finish is very, very nice. So what we're going to see in a moment, we're going to see this leg here, this left leg, this top leg, move over to the other side of Big Dash's head. Then we're going to see him fire this leg out to the side. What this does is it puts his legs in a position where he can where he can start working an inverted triangle. The next thing after this he's going to do, he's going to control this tricep so he can pull Big Dash into this inverted triangle while he locks it up. Okay, so where are we? Leg over the head. Still, Big Dash doesn't feel too vulnerable because he knows he's not in a triangle, but when this leg fires through here, that's where he goes and controls the tricep. It's a lovely, lovely move. And he knows exactly what he's doing because he's on the wrist here. As soon as this leg becomes cleared, this wrist controller's got to move up to the tricep. He's got to pull him into that triangle. Fires, grabs the tricep, and holds him into the triangle while he cinches it up with his legs. And I'll just play this part through because you actually see Big Dash. He goes unconscious and he throws a couple of unconscious strikes while he's asleep, still trying to fight, still trying to ground and pound. You've got to appreciate that. These 2 punches that he throws in a minute, you'll see he's already out here. And he's going to throw a couple of punches. He's ground and pounding, but he's in his mind, he's fighting, but his body's had enough. His body's already switched off. That is a very slick submission. And what that shows you is that DeRidder can win from top position, from bottom position. You can defend the first 2, 3, 4 submissions, and he'll catch you in the 5th. At any point when DeRidder is tangled up with Malykhin, Malykhin's in danger. But if Malykhin can maintain space from DeRidder's in danger because it's only one shot. And the height difference is going to make it challenging for Malykhin. But you've also got to remember, at 6 foot tall, as a heavyweight, he's used to fighting people that are taller than him. I'll show you what I mean. When we look at his fight against Ali Akbar, you can see that he was just out of range of some of the bigger shots, and he was reaching and he was just missing. Like you can see this punch go. He throws and then he resets and winds and throws that punch again. Now we're actually going to see this footwork in his fight against Grushenko in a moment. What you'll notice is he's going to throw this right hand towards his target, and his target's going to circle away. So he's going to bring his back foot forward to reset it, to throw it as a second right hook. Or is it a right hook? It's kind of a right ridge hand, if you ask me. There's the right hand. Right hand brings his back foot forward to reset, and then that's where the big shot comes through. And this is why I call it a ridge hand. Ooh. If we look at the position of this fist, with a ridge hand, you strike in here. You can strike open hand with a ridge hand if you go in traditional martial arts, but we tend to see a lot of people striking with this, and a lot of fighters that have got a Sambo background. They tend to use these really long-range ridge hand style strikes. Now, unfortunately for him, it doesn't land here, but he is able to get to him, and it's a lovely counter to a jab. He finds himself just off at an angle. Look at that. There's that ridge hand again. There it is again. And there's the counter. It comes straight over the jab of Ali Akbar. Oh. And this is where, being the shorter of the heavyweights, it doesn't really make a difference, because what you'll notice is Ali Akbar is pushing him with this jab, and Malykhin's staying in punching range. He's actually slipping to the side of it. So he knows his opponent's committed. His head's already forward, which means that when Malykhin throws this right hand over the side, he's going to be on the end of it. And there it is. And fair play to Ali Akbar, he doesn't get stopped with that shot. But what we do see is Malykhin then go into wrestling mode, sprawl out, land some shots, and then start kneeing him in the head. And this is the downside to getting caught with a big shot against a guy like this is, when you desperately want the fight on the floor, you're going to find yourself in this position, wrapped up in a front headlock, taking knees to the head when you can't get close to him. I mean, he's such a powerful individual, especially upper body. It's going to be difficult for DeRidder, even with his long arms and legs, to drag him in to a grappling match if he doesn't want it. And then eventually he's going to get to your chin. Look how he pivots and twists his body. There's something very, and I don't say this lightly, there's something very Fedor about the way that he strikes. Like the way that he kind of pitches his weight from one side to the other. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So what I'm noticing here on this angle is where this back foot is. Because he's going to throw one shot and then you're going to lose sight of this back foot. This back foot is going to become eclipsed by his opponent. So there's the right hand. By the time he throws that right hand, we can't see that back foot. But what we do see is his momentum continue moving forward as his opponent moves off to the side. Now as he comes back with his other hand, cracks into the chin, and his opponent moves, you'll see his foot's changed direction. It's facing the opposite way. So he's gone from being in an orthodox stance to fire his right hand to switch into almost being, he is, exactly. He's in a southpaw stance now facing the referee, which means that the left hand that he's throwing is now his power hand again. So he's gone power right hand, and then he's stepped through to throw a power left hand. This is what I'm saying about his style being quite Fedor-esque in the way that he shifts his weight and pitches his power hand every time. You'll see it here. There's the right hand. There's the shift across. And then we can't see his feet from this one, but watch his hips. Hips are facing his opponent, orthodox. Throws the right hand. Right foot steps across, and then his hips turn. And now his left hand is power hand, which is bad news for Ali Akbari. And as I was talking about with Grushenko, he was a bit tall and he was a bit unorthodox with his movement. And I don't think DeRidder's going to be this awkward on his feet, but he certainly has got awkward movement, and he does drift away from punches, which might get him out of trouble of that right hand a lot of the time. But what you'll see again is Grushenko makes up for the distance. Look how he's missing these. He makes up for the distance by moving his feet. Like both of those shots miss because Grushenko's drifting away. And you can see that this, there's frustration. If you watch this fight back, you can tell that Malykhin's frustrated, but he gets to him because he doubles up. He doubles up his step. And not only does he double up his step, but he springs into that right hand. It looks quite angelic, quite what's the word? Balletic? Like ballet? Like the way he springs forward. Here we go again, look. So he's pushing. He's in an orthodox stance. He's pushing off that back leg, and he's driving that right hand from his back leg. But as that pitches out, his back foot moves up and re-establishes. And now he's orthodox, and you can see this hand's already on the way around. And as I said before, he's not throwing with knuckles. He's not turning knuckles into it, whether it's a stacked fist or a palm down fist. The very nature of the punch being turned into knuckles means that he's taking some range off of his arm. Like, at what point can I throw a hook and still get my knuckles into the bag or the target, should I say? It gives me a much, much longer weapon to use, which is really useful if you're fighting someone who's much taller than you. Look at that. Watch this next shot. You'll see exactly what I mean about the fist on this when he throws it. Look how that makes contact. That's a full extension ridge hand all the way from that shoulder joint. He lets that whole thing go. He twists from his midsection. This is where the power's coming from. It's the midsection twisting, which is enabled by his footwork. Stepping forward, throwing that weight behind that punch. Here's one more. Here we go. Slips the jab. Throws the first right hand. Oh, a couple of inches short. But the rear foot's following up. And there's the finish. And he's literally in the air as that punch lands. Lands back on his lead foot. He's a dangerous individual. It wouldn't surprise me if we see DeRidder really struggling to get takedowns on Malykhin. I can imagine him to be not only difficult to take down, but very difficult to hold down because he's short and he's powerful and he's muscular. He's going to be scrambling and moving, and he's also down at light heavyweight. Like, this might be the best weight class for him. He might look the best version of himself, having trimmed himself down to be, in that light heavyweight limit where he can really put a pace on his opponent. And DeRidder's tall and rangy and awkward and skilled. But if you can't get this fight to the floor, what's his striking going to look like against Malykhin? That's the big question. DeRidder's improving all the time, but Malykhin may be a different kind of problem to face. This is his first light heavyweight defense as well, which I'm sure that DeRidder's going to want to leave with those two belts, the middleweight and the light heavyweight. But if Malykhin wins this, then we have a new champ, and then we're waiting for Arjun Singh Bhullar to come back for the unification. This is the main event for One on Prime Video 5. Make sure you check it out. It's going to be a hell of a card, and this main event is fascinating. Enjoy the fights, and I'll see you next time.